Millionaire humiliates young poor man at the market, but when he realizes where the chain he's wearing comes from, he's completely shocked. Henry was sitting in his luxurious office, surrounded by glass walls that offered a panoramic view of the city. The environment was a mix of modernity and opulence, with bold designer furniture and carefully selected artworks. However, at that moment, his attention was entirely focused on an old photograph resting on his desk. It was a black and white image from his childhood, where he was standing next to his father. The man in the photo wore a stern expression, while Henry's shy and hesitant smile reflected the pressure he always felt to please. He picked up the photo between his fingers, his thoughts deep in memories that crowded his mind like dark clouds. It was always about being the best, wasn't it? He murmured to himself, unaware that he was speaking aloud. The echo of his father's authoritative voice resonated in his mind. You need to be perfect, Henry. Failure is not an option. The weight of those words felt heavier now as he recalled the countless hours dedicated to studying, the personal sacrifices, and the suffocating expectations. A gentle knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was his assistant, Clara, who entered with a concerned look. Henry, you have a meeting in 10 minutes. Is everything okay? He lifted his head, still holding the photo. Yes, Clara, just revisiting some memories. If you need anything, I'll be right outside, she replied, sensing that he wasn't entirely present. As soon as she left, Henry lost himself again in his recollections. He remembered his mother, who always tried to soften his father's rigidity. She always said I should just be myself. That love was more important than approval, he thought, a knot forming in his throat. The image of his mother smiling at him, full of love and encouragement, blended with that of his father. He recalled the night she passed away, as if the ground had opened beneath his feet. Since then, he had become a shadow of what he could have been. The pain of loss shaped his personality in such a way that he felt incapable of truly connecting with those around him. Later that week, in a therapy session, Henry sat on a comfortable couch, but his posture was rigid. The therapist, Dr. Roberts, observed him closely. Henry, you mentioned that your mother played an important role in your life. How do you feel talking about her? I miss her, Henry replied, his voice trembling. She was the only one who seemed to care. My father, well, he was more of a critic than a dad. And how has that affected your adult life? Dr. Roberts asked, leaning forward, interested in Henry's responses. I became this executive, he said, gesturing with his hand. I work incessantly, but deep down, I feel like I'm just trying to earn the approval of a man who will never be satisfied, always chasing an ideal I can never reach. And what do you think needs to change? Henry hesitated. I don't know. Maybe I need to learn to forgive myself, my father, maybe even my mother for not being here. Let's work on that. The first step is to confront these feelings and understand that you are not alone on this journey. At the end of the session, Henry left the therapist's office with a slightly lighter heart. He decided he needed to change, that he couldn't continue living in the shadow of his past. The idea of investigating more about his family began to germinate in his mind, like a seed of hope finally starting to sprout. It's time to seek forgiveness, he thought, determined not to let fear and pain define him forever. Charlie sat in his small living room, the soft light of late afternoon filtering through the faded curtains. The news that he had a wealthy half-brother still lingered in his mind like a mix of disbelief and confusion. He looked at the photo of his grandmother on the table, her gentle and welcoming expression encouraging him to seek answers. At that moment, his grandmother entered the room, bringing with her the aroma of the orange cake she used to make for him. Hi, my dear. Is everything okay? She asked, noticing the thoughtful expression on Charlie's face. Hi, Grandma. I just received some strange news. I have a half-brother, Charlie said, his words coming out hesitantly. Charlie's grandmother furrowed her brow, sitting beside him on the couch. A half-brother? That's quite a surprise. How do you feel about it? Confused? I don't know if I should be happy or worried. He's rich, Grandma. Very rich. And I'm just me, Charlie replied, looking down at his palms, which trembled slightly. My son, what matters isn't money, but who we are inside. You've always been a kind-hearted boy, and that is more important than any bank account. You mustn't forget your roots, his grandmother advised, placing her hand affectionately over his. I know, but what if I don't fit in? What if he doesn't like me because I'm just a kid from the neighborhood? Charlie felt a wave of insecurity wash over him. If he doesn't like you for who you are, then he doesn't deserve to have you as a brother, Remember that true wealth comes from the kindness and love we share, his grandmother said firmly, her words resonating with Charlie. A few hours later, Charlie found himself in a cafe with his friends. The place was crowded, the noise of conversations and laughter creating a vibrant atmosphere. However, he couldn't concentrate. As soon as he sat down at the table, his friends began to ask about the new discovery. "So, you really have a rich brother?" "That's crazy," exclaimed Lucas, one of Charlie's closest friends. "Yeah, it seems so. He's an executive or something," Charlie replied, avoiding eye contact. "Are you going to meet him? This must be amazing. Just imagine you could drive a fancy car, eat at nice restaurants," joked Mariana, laughing. "Yeah, but it makes me a little nervous. What if I don't know how to act? What if I look like an idiot next to him?" Charlie spoke, his voice sounding a bit louder than he intended. "Trust me, Charlie. He might be rich, but deep down he's just a person. If he's your brother, you probably have some things in common," Lucas said, trying to cheer him up. "I hope so, but what if he doesn't want to know me?" "I don't know if this is right for me," Charlie continued, feeling the weight of pressure. Upon returning home, Charlie entered his room and sat on the bed, surrounded by posters of his favorite bands and books that inspired him. The conversation with his friends echoed in his mind, but what truly troubled him was the doubt about his identity. He wondered what it meant for him to be part of this new family. After all, the life he led was simple, yet held deep meaning. "Who am I now?" he murmured to himself, gazing out the window. The city lights sparkled in the distance, but he felt far removed from everything. The role he had in his half-brother's life, the expectations that might arise, and the possibility of rejection left him feeling restless. "I need to understand this situation better," he decided, his voice firm. The idea of meeting Henry began to take shape in his mind as a challenge he needed to face, not just for himself, but to discover what this new relationship meant. Charlie sat at his desk, surrounded by papers and books, but his mind was far from any task. He was thinking about the revelation that he had a wealthy half-brother, Henry. The thought of connecting with someone from such a different world was both exciting and terrifying. The weight of this new reality hit him overwhelmingly, and he felt lost between two identities that seemed to clash. It was then that he received a message from Mia, his longtime friend, inviting him out. Mia was a passionate advocate for social causes and was always involved in activities aimed at improving the lives within the community. When Charlie arrived at the park where she was waiting, he saw Mia organizing pamphlets for a demonstration about the rights of the homeless. Her intense gaze and contagious determination made him feel a little more secure, even though he was still grappling with his own insecurities. "Hey Charlie, I'm so glad you came," Mia said, smiling. "How are you handling everything?" She gestured toward the pamphlets. "I was thinking about you while organizing this. It's important that we don't forget who we are." "I don't know, Mia, it's all so confusing," Charlie replied, running a hand through his hair. "On one hand, I feel like I might have access to opportunities I never imagined, but on the other, I'm afraid of losing who I am. My grandmother always taught me to value our roots." Mia nodded, understanding Charlie's internal struggle. "It's a complicated situation, but you don't have to choose a side. You can be who you are, even with this new connection, and you can use this opportunity to help others." "That's what I'm trying to understand. Being part of Henry's family doesn't mean I should forget where I came from. But how can I balance all of this?" Charlie looked at the ground, his frustration evident. "Charlie, you have a voice. What if you teamed up with Henry to do something that benefits the community? Think about how powerful it could be to have someone like him by your side, using his influence to help those in need. It's not a betrayal of your roots, but an expansion of them," Mia suggested, her eyes shining. "Do you really think he would want that? He's so different from me, and I don't want to seem like I'm just taking advantage of him because of his wealth," Charlie said, hesitant. "You'll never know until you try, and I'll be here to support you no matter what you decide. But think carefully. This could be a golden opportunity for both you and the community. Don't waste it," Mia replied, her voice firm and encouraging. As they talked, Charlie realized that the internal struggle he felt wasn't just about him. It was about everyone around him. He wanted to make a difference, but the fear of losing his identity paralyzed him. However, Mia's words began to resonate in his mind, and he found himself contemplating how he could use this new connection for the benefit of others. "You're right, Mia. I need to find myself, and maybe this friendship with Henry is part of that. I can't let fear control me. I need to go after what I believe in," Charlie declared, his voice gaining strength. Mia smiled, satisfied. "That's it. Remember, True wealth isn't just about money, but about the relationships we build and the lives we touch. And if he's your brother, that's already a step towards something bigger. With a renewed sense of determination, Charlie felt ready to face whatever came next and explore this connection with Henry. He wasn't just changing his own life. He could potentially change many others. It was a path filled with challenges, but also with possibilities. Henry was at an elegant corporate event, surrounded by colleagues who, despite their smiles, couldn't hide the competitiveness that permeated the atmosphere. Soft music played in the background, but the mood was tense, laden with whispers and nervous laughter. He struggled to stay focused on the conversations, but his mind wandered to the recent disc-golf. It was a mix of confusion and hope, a challenge he hadn't expected to face so soon. As a group of executives gathered near him, malicious comments began to surface. "So, Henry, you've made friends with the kid from the hood?" A colleague remarked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Others laughed, making tasteless jokes about Henry's new relationship. "I hope he doesn't come asking for a raise. What does he know about business anyway?" Another said sarcastically. Henry forced a smile, but inside his heart ached. He felt torn between the old Henry who cared about others' opinions, and the new Henry, who wanted to change and connect genuinely with his half-brother. "Actually," he began, trying to maintain his composure, "Charlie has some very interesting insights about the community. He might surprise us all." The laughter momentarily ceased, but soon returned, louder and more derisive. "Of course, because what does he know about our world, right?" one of the executives said, raising a glass in an ironic toast. The feeling of disdain hit him like a wave. Henry felt anger swell within him. He knew Charlie didn't deserve that. He was a young man with dreams, an idealist in a world that often crushed them. Returning home that night, Henry found himself lost in thought. He sat at the table, looking out at the illuminated city beyond. The bright lights mirrored his emotional state, a mix of hope and despair. He knew he needed to change, not just for himself, but for Charlie. The pressure he felt from his social position was becoming unbearable. It was time to take action. Without hesitation, he grabbed his cell phone and began typing a message to Charlie. "Hi, Charlie. It would be great if we could meet and talk. I need some time to understand all of this." He hesitated a bit before hitting send, but ultimately pressed the button, feeling an immediate sense of relief followed by a wave of anxiety. "What if he doesn't want to see me?" he thought, biting his lower lip. But the response came quickly. Charlie's message pinged on the screen. "Sure, Henry, I'm available tomorrow afternoon. Let's meet." However, upon reading the response, a new doubt emerged. What if he's just giving me a chance because of our family connection? Henry questioned himself, feeling a weight in his stomach. He wondered if he could really be a support for Charlie, or if he was just heading toward yet another disappointment. He knew he needed to face his fears not just for Charlie but for himself. It was time to confront his own demons and try to understand what it meant to be a brother. So that night, while the city continued its course, Henry decided that regardless of what happened, he would commit to being the brother that Charlie deserved. After all, true wealth wasn't in status or money, but in the human connection they could build together. Charlie looked at his cell phone screen, Henry's message blinking like a beacon in the darkness of his uncertainty. Hesitation took hold of him. "Now what?" he thought as his mind revolved around his grandmother's words, which always reminded him of the importance of staying true to his roots. "Charlie, don't forget who you are. Money can change everything, but the heart, that must remain pure," she had said during one of their conversations. He felt torn between the curiosity of getting to know the half-brother he had just discovered and the fear of losing himself in a world that seemed so distant from his reality. He took a deep breath and decided to reflect. He sat down at the kitchen table where the soft light of the lamp illuminated the simple wooden surface. He looked at the family photos hanging on the wall, each one telling a story of struggle and resilience. What am I going to do? What if he doesn't like me? What if I don't fit into his life? The questions echoed in his mind as he gazed at the steaming cup of tea in front of him. Finally, Charlie picked up his cell phone again and read Henry's message one more time. "Hi, Charlie, I'd like to meet and talk. There are things we need to discuss. I'm here to listen to you." The sincerity in Henry's words touched a part of him that had been dormant. After a few minutes of introspective silence, he replied, typing slowly, "Okay, let's meet. How about tomorrow afternoon?" The next day, expectation and nervousness filled Charlie as he headed to the cafe where he had arranged to meet Henry. The place was upscale, with elegantly arranged tables and the aroma of fresh coffee wafting through the air. He entered and spotted Henry sitting in a corner, wearing a worried but determined expression. Charlie hesitated for a moment, but the idea of hiding was not an option. "Hi, Charlie," Henry said, raising his hand in a shy wave. "Thanks for coming." "Hi, Henry. I didn't know what to expect," Charlie replied, taking a seat at the table. The tension was palpable, and both seemed to be trying to find words that made sense in the moment. "I didn't either. To be honest, this situation took me by surprise. I never imagined I would have a half-brother," Henry started, nervously fiddling with the sugar spoon. "I feel like we have a lot to discuss, but above all, I want you to know that I'm here to listen to you." Charlie nodded, admiring Henry's willingness to open up. "I didn't expect this either. My life is quite different from yours. And I don't know if I'm the right person for this kind of relationship. I understand. Look, I'm not perfect. I grew up under tremendous pressure to be someone I may not be. My mom, well, she wasn't there when I needed her the most. That left me a bit cold, I guess," Henry confessed, his eyes drifting to the cup in front of him. "I've always had to fight for what I have. My grandmother taught me to value what truly matters. It's hard to imagine what life would be like on the other side, with everything you have," Charlie said, his tone sincere. "Sometimes I feel like I don't belong in this new world." Henry looked at Charlie, a connection beginning to form between them. "I feel that way too, in a sense. But maybe we have more in common than we think. The pressure to fit in, the pain of losing someone, maybe that unites us." The conversation flowed, and the initial tension slowly began to dissipate. Amid nervous laughter and moments of reflection, they started to share their insecurities and life stories, revealing the scars they carried. By the end of the meeting, Charlie felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. "I really hope we can work together, Henry, not just as brothers but as friends," Charlie said, a shy smile blooming on his face. "I want that too, Charlie. Let's figure this out together," Henry replied, a new spark in his eyes. Both knew that the journey was just beginning, but in that moment, a bond had started to form between them, promising a future full of possibilities. Henry and Charlie sat at a table in the cafe, the aroma of fresh coffee filling the air and the soft sounds of conversations around them. The tension that had lingered between them was beginning to fade, but the weight of unsaid words still surrounded them. Henry, with his hands nervously intertwined, looked at his coffee cup, while Charlie, with a restless mind, tried to articulate his thoughts. "I'm really sorry, Charlie," Henry began, breaking the silence that enveloped them. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but filled with sincerity. "For everything that happened, for not being present in your life before you found out we were brothers. I didn't know how to handle it." Charlie raised his eyes, a mix of confusion and emotion reflected on his face. "You don't have to feel guilty, Henry. It wasn't your fault that our father, well, he wasn't the best man. I just wanted to meet you, understand how you fit into my life now." Henry nodded, his eyes heavy with understanding. "I'm trying to understand that too. When I received the news, it felt like an earthquake. My life was so well organized, so controlled, and suddenly you show up and everything changes." He paused, allowing the words to resonate between them. "I've always felt like I needed to be perfect, the perfect son. Oh, and my relationship with our dad. It shaped me in a way I didn't realize until now." Charlie furrowed his brow, a faint smile emerging. "Perfect? You mean like a robot? Because that's how you seem sometimes. I'm not sure I'd want to be perfect. For me, life is more about the ups and downs, the struggles and the small victories." He leaned forward. "I have my own insecurities. When I first heard about you, I didn't know what to think. My grandpa always taught me to value my roots, and now I feel like a fish out of water." Henry contemplated Charlie's words, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I guess we're in a similar boat then. I worry about not being the brother you need. I don't want you to feel like you have to fit into my world or that I have to fit into yours. I just want us to be honest with each other." "Honesty, yes," Charlie agreed, his tone softer. "I wish I could share more about my life. My grandma, for example, always told me that what matters are the people around you, not what you own. What do you think about that?" Henry hesitated, looking at the bottom of his cup. "My life has always been about achievements, about status, but I'm starting to see that it's empty. When you told me about your grandma, it made me think. I don't have those deep connections. I've distanced myself from everyone in pursuit of an image that isn't real." He took a deep breath, as if exorcising ghosts. "I want to change that, Charlie. I want you to know you can count on me." that I'm here to support you, and that we can do something together. Together, Charlie repeated, his eyes shining with possibility. You mean a project? Something that could help others like your new position could? That would be amazing. Yes, exactly, Henry replied, feeling a wave of enthusiasm. We can use our resources, our time, to make a difference. I believe that if we join forces, we can create something meaningful, something that represents who we really are. Charlie smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. That's all I want, Henry. I don't want to forget where I came from, but I also want to learn, grow, and hopefully inspire others to do the same. He extended his hand, a simple gesture but full of meaning. Henry took Charlie's hand, a bond symbolizing not just their newfound connection but also the promise of a brighter future. Then let's do this together. Let's support each other and, most importantly, help each other heal. And so, in that little cafe, two lives that seemed so distinct began to intertwine, not just as half-brothers but as partners in a journey of self-discovery and solidarity. Henry and Charlie were sitting at a cafe table, surrounded by the aroma of fresh coffee and the buzz of the city around them. Their conversation had flowed more naturally than either had expected, and now they were immersed in the excitement of a new project that, they believed, could make a real difference in Charlie's community. I really think we can do something meaningful, Henry said, looking into Charlie's eyes, which seemed to be growing more confident. What if we created a mentorship program for young people in your community? We could help them develop skills that prepare them for the job market. Charlie smiled, his mind already starting to sketch out plans. That would be incredible. I know so many young people with potential, but they lack support and guidance. But what about funding? Do you think your company would be interested? Henry hesitated for a moment. He knew he would face resistance, but the determination in his heart was stronger. I'll do whatever it takes. We can present this in a way that shows how the company benefits, not just financially, but also in terms of social responsibility. It's an opportunity to change how everyone perceives us. I like that, Charlie said, nodding. But we need to ensure that the voices of the community are heard. We don't want to impose something that isn't useful to them. Exactly, Henry exclaimed, excited. We can organize a meeting with the young people and listen to what they really need. From there, we can shape the project to be truly effective. As they discussed, Charlie's grandmother walked into the cafe, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the two together. She approached them, and observing their interaction, couldn't help but smile. Look at you two. I never thought I'd see my grandson teaming up with a wealthy executive, she commented, with a touch of humor in her voice. Hi, Grandma. We're just planning a project to help the community, Charlie replied, pride shining in his eyes. Henry has some great ideas. Charlie's grandmother regarded Henry with a cautious expression. I hope you're not just using my grandson for your own agenda, young man. He's special and needs someone who truly cares about him. Henry felt the weight of her statement. I understand your concern, ma'am, but I want you to know that I'm committed to doing this right. It's not just about business for me. It's about building a real relationship with Charlie and helping our community. She studied Henry for a moment, as if looking for any sign of insincerity. Finally, her expression softened. Well, if you really care, then I'm willing to give you a chance. I promise I won't let you down, Henry said, feeling a wave of responsibility. I'll do everything I can to make sure this works. After Charlie's grandmother walked away, they returned to discussing the project. We need to think of a name that represents what we're trying to build, Charlie suggested. Something that unites our stories. How about Roots and Wings? Henry proposed. It represents the idea that even when we fly high, we should never forget where we came from. Charlie laughed. I love that. It fits perfectly with what we're trying to do. As they continued to plan, they began to feel the strength of their new friendship. Henry, who had once felt isolated in his corporate world, was now finding a greater purpose. Charlie, in turn, was discovering his voice and the confidence he had always lacked. Both were determined not just to change their lives, but to make a positive impact on the community they both cherished. Let's do this together, Henry, Charlie said, extending his hand. We're just getting started. Together, Henry confirmed, shaking Charlie's hand firmly, and let a new era begin. Henry was preparing for the project presentation at his company headquarters, his heart racing. He had faced challenges before, but nothing compared to the pressure he felt now, especially since he was defending Charlie. Despite the luxurious environment and the walls adorned with artwork, a palpable tension lingered in the air. His colleagues, always ready to criticize any deviation from established norms, were clearly uncomfortable with the idea of an executive associating with someone from humble beginnings. During the meeting, when Henry enthusiastically presented the project, some of his colleagues shot him skeptical looks. "Given the current economic situation, we can't afford to waste time and resources on projects that don't yield immediate returns," said Alan, one of the directors, crossing his arms defensively. And frankly, the idea of investing in an initiative led by someone like Charlie, well, that's a risk we can't take. Henry felt a knot form in his stomach. He knew the resistance he faced wasn't just about the project. It was about his decision to associate with Charlie. "Alan, what we're trying to do here goes beyond numbers and profits. We're talking about social impact, about changing lives. Charlie has a connection to the community that honestly none of us have," he replied, trying to maintain his composure. "Social impact? Or is it just an attempt to alleviate your own guilt for growing up in a world of privilege?" Alan shot back, his eyes glinting with challenge. The murmurs in the room increased, and Henry realized this was the opening his colleagues had been waiting for to attack. "That's ridiculous, Alan," interjected Sarah, a young colleague who had always admired Henry's work. "We're all here to seek creative and innovative solutions. If we're not willing to listen to different voices, we'll never see real change." "Oh yes, because the voice of a kid who grew up in a poor neighborhood is exactly what we need to solve our corporate problems," Alan retorted with disdain, causing the room to fall silent. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting for Henry's reaction. He felt anger rising within him, but at the same time a determination. He couldn't let Alan belittle Charlie like that. "You don't know anything about him," Henry said, his voice steady and controlled. "Charlie isn't just a kid. He's an intelligent and passionate young man who understands the inequalities many of us ignore. He has a vision that could help us achieve more than just financial profit. We can make a difference." "And what do you have to offer, Henry? A friendship of convenience?" Alan provoked, laughing sarcastically. The room fell silent, all eyes on Henry. He took a deep breath, feeling adrenaline rush through his veins. "Yes, a friendship of convenience. If that means I can use my position to help someone who truly needs it. I've never been perfect, but I'm trying to do the right thing. And if that bothers you, maybe you should rethink your own priorities." The atmosphere in the room shifted, and many colleagues began to whisper among themselves, clearly unsettled by the passionate defense Henry had just made. The tension hung in the air, but Henry felt stronger than ever. He had chosen his side, and that meant defending Charlie no matter the consequences. "If you're not willing to see the potential of this project, then maybe you need to reevaluate what it means to be a responsible company. I'm committed to this, and Charlie is the key to opening that door," he concluded, looking firmly at Alan. Henry felt a mix of relief and nervousness, but the decision had been made. He had taken a stand, and regardless of what happened next, he was prepared to fight for what he believed in. Something inside him had shifted, and he knew he was on the right path, not just for himself but also for Charlie and the community they were about to impact together. As the project progressed, Henry and Charlie were excited about the ideas they were developing. They met frequently to discuss strategies and plans, but the positive atmosphere would soon be threatened. Charlie was in Henry's office, surrounded by papers and charts, when he received an anonymous message on his phone. It was a photo of a confidential document showing how an old rival of Henry's, Richard, was sabotaging their efforts. "Henry, you need to see this," Charlie exclaimed, his voice trembling with indignation. He tossed his phone onto the table. Henry looked at the screen, his face contorting with concern. He knew Richard well. The man was cunning and wouldn't hesitate to use underhanded tactics to achieve his goals. "This is unacceptable," Henry said, his tone turning serious. "Richard has always been a snake, but I didn't think he'd stoop this low." Charlie stood up, determination growing within him. "We need to confront him. We can't let this happen, especially now that we're trying to do something positive for the community." Henry hesitated, the weight of the situation beginning to settle on his shoulders. "I know, but Richard has influence. If we confront him, it could be dangerous. He'll try to turn the situation against us." "I don't care," Charlie replied, passion echoing in his voice. "If we do nothing, he'll get away with it. And what will happen to our project? To our friendship? I won't let this end because of a jealous rival." Henry looked into Charlie's eyes and saw the sincerity and courage shining there. Something about his determination inspired Henry to act. "Okay, let's confront him. But we need to be smart about it. We can't just go to him and accuse him. We need evidence." The plan was set, They would decide on a moment to meet with Richard while simultaneously gathering more information they could use to their advantage. Adrenaline pulsed through Charlie as he thought of the possible repercussions, but the desire to protect his new friendship propelled him forward. Days later, during a casual encounter in the company hallway, Charlie spotted Richard approaching. The man wore an arrogant smile, as if he knew he was one step ahead of everyone. Charlie took a deep breath, his heart racing. "Richard!" he called, the intensity in his voice grabbing the rival's attention. "Can we talk for a moment?" Richard stopped, the look of surprise quickly morphing into a mask of disdain. "What do you want, Charlie? I don't have time for your nonsense." "I know what you're doing to our project," Charlie said, getting straight to the point. "I'm not going to let you sabotage our efforts." Richard raised an eyebrow, a mocking smile spreading across his lips. "And do you think you have any proof? You and Henry are just a couple of rookies. You can't handle the grandeur of this place. You think you can intimidate people just because you've been here longer?" Charlie shot back, rage burning inside him. "I'm not a victim anymore, Richard, and you're going to regret messing with both of us." The looks exchanged between them were charged and the tension in the air was palpable. Richard, realizing Charlie wasn't backing down, decided to change tactics. "Listen, kid, you can try to act tough, but in the end, you'll always be the grandson of a grandmother living in a poor neighborhood." He let out a sarcastic laugh. "Don't forget where you came from." Richard's words cut like a knife, but instead of crumbling, Charlie felt his determination grow. He stepped closer, staring Richard down firmly. "I don't care what you think of me. What matters is that I won't be shaken by you. The project will go on, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." Richard laughed, but there was a glimmer of concern in his eyes. "You're going to regret getting involved where you don't belong." With one last defiant look, Charlie turned and walked away, feeling adrenaline coursing through his body. He knew he had intensified the rivalry, but he was also sure he was fighting for the right cause. The battle was just beginning, and he wasn't alone. The room was packed. Well-dressed executives, important clients, and company employees settled into their seats, all eager to hear the presentation of the project that Henry and Charlie had developed. The atmosphere was one of anticipation, but also tension. Whispers about the challenges faced and suspicions of sabotage still lingered in the air, and the presence of Henry's rival, Mark, was a constant reminder of the competition and distrust permeating the environment. Henry positioned himself in front of the audience, his expression serious yet determined. He glanced at Charlie, who was seated in the front row, his nervous expression filled with hope. Henry gave a slight nod, signaling that they were in this together. Taking a deep breath, he began. "Thank you all for being here today. We are about to present a project that will not only benefit our company but also our community." As Henry spoke, he noticed Mark in the back, watching him with a sardonic smile. It was a smile that said, "You're not going to make it." But Henry refused to be intimidated. He continued, "This project is special. It was born from collaboration between different worlds and experiences, and it shows that when we join forces, we can achieve extraordinary results." Charlie felt revitalized by Henry's words. He knew that this project was more than just work. It was an opportunity to show the world that his humble origins didn't define him, but rather his actions and choices did. When Henry paused, Charlie stood up and with a determined gesture began to speak. "I'm Charlie, and I'm grateful for the chance to work alongside Henry. This project aims not only to improve the conditions of our community, but also to inspire significant changes in how we perceive the social inequalities around us." However, before Charlie could continue, Mark stood up, interrupting him with a disdainful tone. "And you really think your idealistic vision is going to change anything? Coming from where you do, all of this is just a dream." Henry, sensing the tension rise, looked at Charlie, who was about to respond, but he decided to intervene. "Mark, this isn't just a dream. It's a reality we're building together. And frankly, your words have no place here. You've done everything you could to sabotage our project, but now it's time for you to hear what we have to say." The silence in the room was palpable. Mark, caught off guard, tried to regain his composure, but Henry's confidence had disarmed him. "What are you insinuating, Henry? That's a serious accusation," he retorted, his voice laced with disbelief. "Yes, it is, and I have proof. I knew you were behind the attempts to destabilize our work, and today I'm going to expose it all." Henry looked at the screen behind him, where a presentation began displaying emails and communications linking Mark to various acts of sabotage. The atmosphere shifted into a rising buzz, and the faces of colleagues showed shock. "How did you have the guts to do this?" One of the directors asked, clearly surprised. Because the truth needs to be told, Henry replied firmly. And this is the only way we can ensure a better future not just for us but for everyone around us. The ensuing scandal was overwhelming. Mark, exposed, could no longer deny his involvement. The room filled with murmurs and disappointed glances. Henry, finally relieved, turned to Charlie, whose eyes were sparkling. "We did this together," Henry said with a genuine smile. "You gave me courage. I couldn't have done it without you," Charlie replied, moved. "We really changed things." With the presentation wrapped up, the two retreated to a corner of the room where they could breathe a sigh of relief. "What comes next?" Charlie asked, anxious. "We keep going. What do you think about starting a foundation to help the community? Let's use this experience to do even more." Charlie smiled, the certainty that they were on the right path lighting up his gaze. "Yes, we need to do this, and I promise I'll never forget where I came from." And so, in the face of adversity and revelations, Henry and Charlie decided not only to continue with their project, but also to commit to creating something meaningful that reflected not just their achievements, but also the true wealth they found in their new familial relationship, solidarity, and mutual support. We've reached the end of this moving story. If you enjoyed it and want to see more narratives like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Right now, there's a playlist of videos on your screen. If you want to keep watching these touching stories, just click on it and you'll start watching right away. And now tell us in the comments where you're watching from and leave your like to support our work. Now, a sincere question. Do you agree with what happened in the story? We want to know your opinion. Until the next video.